Some things are abandoned because they are worthless. Others are abandoned because no one knows what they are carrying. Cole Barrett is about to learn the difference. The morning air over the county surplus yard outside Norfolk, Virginia, carries the damp chill of early November, sharp with diesel fumes, wet asphalt, and salt drifting inland from the Chesapeake Bay. Beneath a washed-out gray sky, rows of forgotten property sit behind chain-link fencing, dented filing cabinets, office chairs, cracked storage bins, and hundreds of suitcases stacked beneath blue tarps darkened by overnight rain. Cole stands beside an aging silver pickup with one hand buried in the pocket of his faded field jacket. At 37, the former Navy SEAL still has the broad shoulders and quiet posture of a man trained to notice everything. But there is no uniform now, no team waiting for him, and no address he can honestly call home. Everything he owns fits behind the seat of that truck. Everything except Shadow. The 6-year-old German Shepherd waits beside his boot, dark sable coat stirring in the cold breeze, amber eyes moving calmly across the yard. Cole looks at the receipt again. $940. Nearly everything he has left. In exchange, he now owns a truckload of abandoned luggage from a storage contractor clearing years of unclaimed property. Most bidders wanted tools, electronics, anything easy to resell. Nobody wanted other people's old suitcases. One man near the loading dock had laughed when Cole raised his number. Hope somebody forgot $1 million in there. Cole had only folded the receipt and answered, I'd settle for making rent. There is no rent, of course. Not anymore. Only gasoline, cheap meals, and nights spent reclining the driver's seat while Shadow sleeps behind him. But Cole has a plan. Clean the luggage. Repair what he can. Sell the usable pieces at flea markets and online. It is not much of a plan, but men who have lost almost everything learn not to insult small beginnings. A forklift lowers the final pallet beside the truck. Cole starts securing the load beneath a canvas cover when Shadow suddenly rises. His ears tilt forward. What is it, buddy? Cole asks. The shepherd steps around him and approaches the luggage. He passes a red carry-on, a leather duffel, 2 hardshell cases, then squeezes between stacked bags toward the center of the load. Cole watches him disappear beneath the edge of the tarp. Shadow. No response. Then comes a soft scrape of claws against plastic. Cole climbs onto the tailgate and pulls the tarp aside. Shadow is sitting perfectly still before an old navy blue suitcase wedged beneath 3 newer bags. One zipper is broken. The fabric is faded almost gray at the corners. No luggage tag hangs from the handle. Nothing about it looks valuable. Come on, Cole murmurs. Shadow does not move. Instead, he lowers his nose to one corner, inhales slowly, then places a single paw against the suitcase. Cole's expression changes. He knows that posture. Years may have passed since Shadow worked beside him, but some signals do not disappear simply because the mission ends. Cole pulls the suitcase free. It feels ordinary. Light, even. He turns it over, finding only scratches and a strip of old adhesive where a label once rested. Around them, engines start, workers shout across the yard, and rain begins tapping softly against the truck roof. Shadow never looks away from the bag. Cole studies his partner for a long moment, then looks down at the battered suitcase nobody wanted. What do you know that I don't? By the time Cole pulls away from the surplus yard, the rain has settled into a steady November drizzle, turning the streets outside Norfolk into ribbons of gray beneath the headlights. Shadow sits behind the passenger seat, but he does not curl up the way he usually does on long drives. His ears remain forward. Every few minutes, he looks through the rear window toward the canvas-covered load, as though something back there has followed them. Cole notices. He notices everything Shadow does. He simply does not always understand it right away. He drives 6 miles west before turning into a 24-hour truck stop, where the parking lot glows beneath pale yellow lamps. This is where they have slept for 3 nights. Cole parks near the far fence, away from the tractor-trailers, shuts off the engine, and listens as the heater fan slowly dies. Silence returns quickly. Rain ticks against the windshield. Shadow climbs forward and rests his chin between the seats. Cole reaches back and scratches the thick fur beneath his collar. Not exactly Coronado, is it? Shadow gives a quiet breath through his nose. Cole almost smiles. There was a time when mornings began before sunrise with men waiting for his decisions. There were coordinates, schedules, responsibilities, and a place where his name belonged. Now his mornings begin with finding a restroom where nobody asks questions and checking whether the gasoline gauge can survive another day. The fall did not happen all at once. Most falls do not. After leaving the Navy, Cole tried contracting work, then warehouse security, then equipment repair. One job ended when the company downsized. Another disappeared when the owner sold the business. Medical bills from his late father's final year consumed what savings remained, and when Cole could no longer keep the small apartment, he packed without ceremony. 2 duffel bags, a toolbox, an old photograph, his service keepsakes. Shadow climbed into the pickup before Cole finished loading. That was 7 weeks ago. Since then, the German Shepherd has never treated the truck like evidence of failure. To Shadow, home has always been simpler. Home is where Cole is. Cole opens his wallet beneath the weak dome light. $48 in cash. The auction has taken nearly everything else. He studies the bills, then glances toward the rear window. $940 for a truckload of luggage strangers had forgotten. It sounds reckless now. Maybe it was. But tomorrow he can start cleaning the bags inside the garage he rented by the week. Good suitcases can sell. Leather duffels can be restored. Even broken luggage has hardware worth salvaging. Piece by piece, perhaps there is enough back there to buy time. Cole leans his head against the seat and closes his eyes. Shadow does not settle. A minute passes. Then another. The dog turns toward the rear window again and releases a low, questioning whine. Cole opens his eyes. Still thinking about that blue one. Shadow looks at him, then back toward the covered truck bed. Outside, rain runs down the glass in silver threads. Somewhere beneath the canvas, surrounded by hundreds of forgotten belongings, the faded navy blue suitcase waits in darkness. Cole watches Shadow for several seconds before reaching for the keys. Sleep can wait. He knows a place where they can work tonight. The garage sits behind a shuttered tire shop on the western edge of Norfolk, a narrow concrete room Cole rents from an old mechanic who never asks why a man needs access after midnight. By the time the pickup rolls beneath the security light, the rain has softened to a mist. Cole unlocks the corrugated door and pushes it upward, waking the darkness with a metallic rattle. One fluorescent tube flickers above a workbench. The air smells of cold concrete, machine oil, and old cardboard. It is not much, but tonight it is dry. Cole backs the truck inside and begins unloading. Shadow watches from beside the workbench. A red carry-on comes first, then 2 black roller bags, a canvas duffel, a child's purple suitcase with one missing wheel. Cole arranges everything in rows, separating what can be cleaned from what needs repair. Soon the floor resembles a strange map of lives that once crossed airports, bus stations, hotels, and highways. Cole opens the first suitcase. 3 dress shirts, a paperback novel, a pair of running shoes. Nothing personal enough to identify the owner. The next holds winter clothes and a postcard from Maine that was never written on. Another contains a baseball glove, 2 faded t-shirts, and a small toy truck with blue paint worn from its wheels. Cole pauses over that one. Somebody had packed it for a child. Somebody had expected to unpack it again. He closes the case gently. Hours pass. Rain whispers against the metal roof, while zippers open and close beneath the fluorescent hum. Cole finds no fortune, no jewelry, no miracle hiding beneath a sweater. Only ordinary things, and somehow that makes the room feel heavier. These bags are not trash. They are unfinished sentences. Shadow moves quietly among them, sniffing here and there, but always returning to the same place near the truck. The navy blue suitcase. Cole finally carries it to the workbench. All right, he says softly. You win. Shadow sits beside him. The suitcase opens with resistance, its damaged zipper catching twice before releasing. Inside are neatly folded men's clothes, older but carefully kept. 2 button-down shirts, khaki pants, a gray sweater, a shaving kit. At the bottom rests a faded photograph of a family standing beside a lake. Cole lifts it by the edges. A man, a woman, and a young girl smile beneath summer sunlight. There is no date, no name, nothing on the back. Cole searches every pocket. Empty. He checks the seams, the side compartments, even the broken zipper lining. Nothing. That is it, buddy. Shadow does not move. Cole closes the suitcase. Shadow immediately places his nose against the lower right corner. We checked it. The dog sniffs again, slower this time, then presses one paw against the fabric. Cole studies him. Shadow has ignored nearly 100 bags tonight. Not this one. Cole opens it again and removes everything. The bare lining looks ordinary beneath the fluorescent light. Then Shadow touches the same corner. Cole runs his fingers across the fabric. Once, twice. His hand stops. The bottom should flex. It does not. He presses near the center and hears something faint beneath the lining. Not metal. Not quite. Just a small, dull sound where there should be nothing at all. Cole looks at Shadow. The German Shepherd sits perfectly still, amber eyes fixed on him. Cole reaches for the old seam tool on the workbench, but before he touches the fabric, the fluorescent light above them flickers once, and in that brief change of shadow, Cole notices something he somehow missed before. The stitching along the bottom edge is newer than the suitcase itself. Cole does not cut the stitching right away. Old habits make him careful with things that do not make sense. He moves the photograph, clothes, and shaving kit to the far end of the workbench, then turns the empty suitcase beneath the fluorescent light. Shadow remains beside him, silent now, watching his hands. The newer thread runs along 3 sides of the interior floor, almost perfectly matched to the faded navy fabric, but not perfectly enough. Whoever repaired it wanted the seam overlooked. Cole slides the tip of the seam tool beneath one loose stitch and gently lifts. The thread gives. Then another. Slowly, without tearing the lining. He works along the edge until the fabric rises beneath his fingers. There is another surface underneath. Thin plywood, cut precisely to the shape of the suitcase and covered in dark felt. Cole exhales through his nose. You were right. Shadow's ears lift at the sound of his voice. Cole removes the false panel. Beneath it lies a shallow compartment no more than an inch deep. For objects rest inside as neatly as if someone placed them there yesterday. A brass key with a small paper tag tied around its neck. A worn military challenge coin. A Polaroid photograph. And a cream-colored envelope sealed inside a clear plastic sleeve. Cole touches nothing for several seconds. Outside, water drips steadily from the roof gutter, each drop landing in the same puddle with the patient rhythm of a clock. He picks up the coin first. Its edges are smooth from years of handling. One side carries an eagle above a faded unit crest. The other bears a name engraved in small letters. Thomas Avery. Cole's hand stops. The garage suddenly feels quieter. He knows that name, though not from friendship. Years earlier, during his service, he had heard it spoken among veterans and contractors in Virginia Beach. Avery had once managed a private charitable fund that helped military families facing emergencies. Then the fund collapsed amid questions about missing records, and Avery disappeared from public view. Some called him dishonest. Others said there had to be more to the story. Cole had never cared enough to decide which version was true. Until now. He reaches for the Polaroid. It shows the same family from the photograph inside the suitcase, only years earlier. The little girl is perhaps 7, sitting on Thomas Avery's shoulders beside a white lakeside cabin. On the bottom border, someone has written 3 words in blue ink, for Emily someday. Cole turns toward the brass key. The paper tag carries only a number, 214. No address. No explanation. Then he lifts the envelope. Across the front, written by hand, is a single name. Emily Avery. Shadow rises and brings his nose close to the plastic sleeve, then looks toward the rows of luggage covering the garage floor. Cole notices immediately. What? Shadow steps away from the workbench. He walks past the red carry-on, circles a stack of roller bags, and stops beside an old olive-green duffel Cole inspected nearly 2 hours earlier. The shepherd lowers his nose to its handle and gives one quiet whine. Cole stares at the duffel, then at the envelope in his hand. Something cold moves through him that has nothing to do with the November rain. He crosses the garage and checks the faded identification patch sewn near the duffel's zipper. Earlier, he had dismissed the writing as too worn to read. Now, beneath stronger light, he can make out 2 surviving letters. T. A. Cole looks back at the hidden compartment, at the key marked 214, and at the photograph meant for a girl named Emily. He had thought Shadow found one strange suitcase. Now he understands the suitcase may only be the first piece of something scattered across the entire truckload. Cole carries the olive-green duffel to the workbench and sets it beside the navy suitcase. Shadow follows, then settles near his left boot as if the important part of his work is finished. Cole opens the duffel again, this time slowly. Earlier, he had found nothing remarkable inside. A wool cap, 2 old sweatshirts, A paperback with a cracked spine. A leather toiletry case. Now he searches differently. Not for something valuable. For something connected. He turns the first sweatshirt over and finds a faded laundry mark near the collar. Avery. The second bears the same name. Cole looks toward the challenge coin resting beneath the fluorescent light. Thomas Avery is no longer a rumor from years ago. He is becoming a person. Cole opens the paperback. A photograph slips from between the pages and lands face up on the concrete. Shadow lifts his head. Cole bends to retrieve it. Thomas stands beside the white cabin again, older this time, one hand resting on the porch railing. Beside him is a teenage girl Cole recognizes as Emily. On the back, in faded blue ink, Thomas has written a date from nearly 15 years earlier and a location near Smith Mountain Lake, Virginia. Beneath that is one sentence. Emily still thinks the stars belong to her. Cole reads it twice. There is nothing secretive about the words. Nothing dramatic. Just a father remembering his daughter. That somehow unsettles him more than the hidden compartment. Men planning to disappear do not usually hide photographs for their children. Cole checks the toiletry case and finds an old motel receipt folded into quarters. Virginia Beach. Room 214. The number matches the tag on the brass key. He lays them side by side. That cannot be coincidence. Shadow stands and sniffs the receipt, then turns toward the luggage again. Cole follows his gaze. Nearly 100 bags remain unopened or only briefly checked. What looked like inventory an hour ago now feels like a trail somebody never intended to lose. He returns to the Navy suitcase and finally examines the sealed envelope addressed to Emily. He could open it. Technically, the contents belong to the property he purchased. But the thought feels wrong before he even finishes it. Cole knows what it is to have the last pieces of someone reduced to objects. After his father died, there had been a cardboard box from the hospital containing a watch, reading glasses, keys, and a wallet. Ordinary things became sacred because the person attached to them was gone. Cole places the envelope back inside its plastic sleeve. Not ours. Shadow's tail touches the floor once. Cole reaches for his phone. The screen shows 2:17 in the morning. He searches Thomas Avery's name, adding Virginia and Military Family Fund. Old articles appear first. A charity once praised for helping service families. Questions over missing financial records. An investigation. Then silence. Cole scrolls farther until he finds a small, archived notice from years later. Thomas Avery had died in North Carolina after a long illness. No public memorial. No explanation of what happened to the records. Cole sits back. Shadow rests his head against Cole's knee. Then one search result catches his attention. It is not about Thomas. It is a community announcement dated only 8 months earlier. Emily Avery, now Emily Avery Bennett, is listed as the organizer of a volunteer program helping veterans transition into permanent housing. Cole stares at those words for a long moment, surrounded by luggage he bought because he had nowhere else to go. Somewhere out there, Thomas Avery's daughter is helping strangers find homes, while the last pieces of her father's story have somehow arrived in the garage of a homeless veteran. Cole looks down at Shadow. The German Shepherd is already staring toward the next row of forgotten bags. By 3 in the morning, Cole has stopped thinking of the luggage as merchandise. He moves through the garage with the patience of a man assembling a map from pieces that were never meant to meet again. Shadow works beside him without command, nose passing over canvas, leather, plastic, and cloth until he pauses at a small brown carry-on buried beneath 2 larger cases. Cole lifts it onto the workbench. Inside are women's clothes, a paperback cookbook, and a cedar box no larger than his hand. The box is empty, but its lid bears 2 initials burned into the wood. E.A. Cole looks toward the photograph of Emily beside the lake. Emily Avery. Shadow has already moved on. 20 minutes later, he stops at a battered black suitcase. Cole opens it and finds children's books, an old yellow raincoat, and a spiral notebook wrapped in a grocery bag. The first pages contain ordinary household notes. Grocery lists, school reminders, a veterinarian appointment. Then Cole sees Thomas Avery's name written across the top of a page dated 16 years earlier. Beneath it are addresses, storage numbers, and short notes about documents being moved for safekeeping. Cole reads carefully, refusing to invent meaning where there may be none. One entry mentions the Virginia Beach Motel, room 214. Another mentions the cabin near Smith Mountain Lake. A third line contains only 4 words. Original stay with Emily. Cole feels Shadow lean gently against his leg. He was trying to keep something together. Dawn begins thinning the darkness beyond the garage windows, turning the rain clouds pale over Norfolk. Cole keeps searching. A canvas garment bag contains a woman's coat, and, tucked inside an inner pocket, another photograph of Thomas, Emily, and the same woman from the suitcase picture. A luggage claim tag on the handle carries the Avery surname. 3 bags, then 4, then 5. Different styles, different ages, all scattered through a load supposedly made from unrelated abandoned property. By sunrise, Cole has arranged them in a separate row. The rest of the luggage fills most of the garage, but these 5 pieces seem to belong to another world. Shadow circles them once and sits. Cole studies the objects spread across the workbench. The challenge coin, the brass key, the Polaroids, the motel receipt, the notebook, and the unopened letter. There is still no treasure. No stack of cash waiting beneath a lining. What he has found is stranger than that. Fragments of a family separated across years, somehow gathered into one forgotten shipment. Cole searches the motel address from the receipt. The building still exists, though it now operates as a modest extended stay property near Virginia Beach. Room numbers appear unchanged. He looks at the brass key marked 214. Too old for a modern electronic lock. Perhaps it once opened something inside the room. A cabinet, a lockbox, a storage compartment. Then he notices a final detail in the notebook. Beside the room number, Thomas had drawn a small star. Cole turns over the Polaroid from the duffel, the one where Emily stands beneath the night sky at the lake. On the back, below the sentence about the stars belonging to her, there is another tiny star drawn in the same blue ink. Cole goes still. He brings both pieces beneath the light. Same shape, same hand. Shadow watches him quietly. For the first time, Cole understands that the photographs are not merely memories. They may be directions. He reaches for his jacket, gathers the key, notebook, and photographs into the plastic sleeve, then looks at the unopened letter and leaves it where it is. That belongs to Emily. Whatever waits behind the number 214, Cole needs to understand it before he brings a stranger the scattered remains of her father's past. Shadow is already standing beside the garage door. Cole gives a tired smile and reaches for the truck keys. All right, partner. Virginia Beach. The drive to Virginia Beach takes less than an hour, but morning traffic turns the interstate into a slow river of brake lights beneath a clearing sky. Cole drives with the window cracked, letting cold salt air keep him awake while Shadow sits upright beside him. By the time they reach the address on the old receipt, sunlight is breaking through the clouds, catching on wet pavement and the faded blue railings of a 3-story extended stay motel a few blocks from the ocean. The place has changed names twice since Thomas Avery stayed there, but the bones of the building remain the same. Cole parks near the office and studies the brass key in his palm. Room 214 is on the 2nd floor. He does not try the door. Whatever this key once opened, Cole knows better than to treat an old receipt like permission to enter someone else's room. Instead, he walks into the office and explains only what he can prove. He purchased abandoned property. He found belongings connected to a former guest. He has an old key marked 214 and wants to know whether the motel recognizes it. The manager, a silver-haired man named Walter, examines the key beneath the desk lamp and gives a puzzled smile. That is not a room key. He turns it over. We used these for the old guest lockers. Cole feels something tighten in his chest. Walter points toward a hallway behind the office. Years ago, before renovations, long-term guests could rent small steel compartments for documents and valuables. Most were removed when the property changed ownership. Most. There is one cabinet left in storage, Walter says. Nobody ever found the paperwork for it. 20 minutes later, after Walter checks old records and confirms Thomas Avery's name in archived guest logs, they stand in a dusty maintenance room behind the laundry area. Shadow waits beside Cole as Walter pulls a canvas cover from a narrow steel cabinet. Dust rises into a beam of morning light. Small numbered doors run down its face. Cole sees 208, 210, 212, and then 214. Walter looks at him. Cole holds out the key. You open it. Walter accepts. The brass slides into the lock as though the years between have been waiting for this exact motion. One turn. A soft click. Inside is a weathered document case and nothing else. Walter removes it and places it on a folding table. The case is not locked. Cole opens it carefully. There are no bundles of money, no jewels. Instead, there are property records, bank correspondence, notarized statements, charity ledgers, and a deed connected to land near Smith Mountain Lake. Beneath them rests a handwritten letter addressed to Emily. Cole does not open that one either. He reads only enough of the official documents to understand what Thomas had been protecting. Years ago, when questions surrounded the military family fund, Thomas had separated personal assets from the charity and preserved original records showing where the disputed money had actually gone. Emergency housing, medical travel, utility payments, temporary lodging for military families. The missing records had not vanished because the money was stolen. They had been scattered during the closure of the organization, while Thomas, already seriously ill, tried to preserve the originals before everything was lost in storage transfers. One notarized statement names Emily Avery as beneficiary of the lakeside property and a separate account established from Thomas's personal funds. Cole sits very still. The documents do not make Thomas perfect. They do something more human. They give him back the truth. Walter quietly says that Cole should contact an attorney before moving anything. Cole agrees. He photographs the cabinet and leaves the originals exactly where they are while Walter secures the room. Outside, the Atlantic wind carries the smell of rain and coffee from somewhere across the street. Cole sits in the pickup with Shadow beside him and searches for Emily Avery Bennett's organization again. Her photograph appears on the volunteer page. She has her father's eyes. Beneath her name is a sentence about helping veterans move from temporary shelter into stable homes. Cole looks at his own reflection in the dark phone screen. $48. No permanent address. A truck full of things he hoped to sell just to survive another month. And now, within reach, proof of property and money that could change somebody's life. His life, perhaps, if he chose to misunderstand what ownership meant. Shadow places one paw gently across Cole's wrist. Cole looks down at him. Yeah, he whispers. I know. He starts the engine. Before he sells a single suitcase, before he spends another dollar, he is going to find Emily. Because the secret Shadow uncovered was never meant for the man who found it. It was meant for the daughter who had spent years believing her father left nothing behind but questions. Cole finds Emily Avery Bennett before noon, not at an office with polished glass doors, but inside a converted church fellowship hall 12 miles from the motel. Folding tables line the walls beneath handwritten signs offering housing assistance, job referrals, donated coats, and hot coffee to veterans who need somewhere to begin again. Cole stands outside for nearly a minute with Shadow beside him and the unopened envelope tucked safely inside his jacket. He has faced harder doors in his life, but few have felt this personal. Inside, Emily is helping an older veteran fill out an apartment application. She is in her early 40s now, with light brown hair pulled back loosely and the same steady eyes Cole saw in the photographs. When she finally approaches him, her smile is polite but tired. Can I help you? Cole looks at Shadow, then back at her. I think your father can. The smile disappears. Cole does not explain everything at once. He gives her the faded photograph first. Emily stares at it without speaking. Her thumb moves over the image of the white cabin beside Smith Mountain Lake. Then Cole places the challenge coin in her palm. Her breath catches. Where did you get this? Cole tells her about the auction, the luggage, the false bottom, and the old locker. He leaves out one detail, where he slept the night before. When he hands her the sealed envelope, Emily recognizes the handwriting immediately. She presses it against her chest before opening it. Eyes closed for a moment as though the paper itself carries a voice she has not heard in years. Cole turns away while she reads. Shadow remains beside her. Minutes pass. When Emily lowers the letter, tears shine quietly on her cheeks. He knew people thought he took the money, she says. He kept telling me the records would prove where it went. Then he got sick, storage accounts changed, boxes disappeared. I thought everything was gone. Cole tells her about the motel locker and the documents Walter secured. Emily covers her mouth with one hand. The property deed, the ledgers, the beneficiary papers, all of it still exists. Not as a fortune waiting for a stranger, but as a truth waiting for its rightful owner. Emily kneels beside Shadow and places both hands gently against his sable neck. You found him, she whispers. Shadow leans into her without hesitation. Cole looks toward the tables across the room, where strangers are helping strangers find apartments, jobs, and second chances. Emily rises and asks the question he hoped she would not ask. What do I owe you? Cole shakes his head. Nothing. You bought those bags. I bought luggage. I did not buy your father. Her eyes remain on him. Then they drop to his weathered jacket, the tired boots, the truck keys in his hand. She notices what Cole has carefully avoided saying. Where are you staying? Cole gives a small shrug. Shadow likes the truck. Emily looks through the window at the aging pickup, then back at the man who could have walked away with her inheritance and instead drove across Hampton Roads to return a letter. She does not offer pity. She simply reaches for a folder from the nearest table. We have an opening, she says. Our property coordinator left last month. We need someone who understands inventory, records, and people who have lost things. Cole almost laughs at the strange precision of it. Shadow's tail taps once against the floor. Emily smiles through the last of her tears. Maybe he found more than my father's suitcase. Cole looks down at his partner. For the first time in 7 weeks, tomorrow does not feel like another place to survive. 3 months later, winter sunlight falls through the front window of a small brick house on a quiet street outside Norfolk, warming the hardwood floor where Shadow sleeps with his paws stretched toward the morning light. His dark sable coat rises and falls with each peaceful breath. Near the door sits Cole's old pair of boots, still worn at the heels, but no longer kept beneath the seat of a pickup. The truck is outside now, parked beneath a bare maple tree, carrying nothing except a toolbox and a little road salt in the bed. Cole stands in the kitchen holding a mug of coffee while the furnace hums softly through the house. At 37, he looks much the same as he did that rainy morning at the surplus yard. Same faded field jacket hanging from the chair. Same quiet eyes. Same habit of checking the window before settling into a room. But something in him has changed. He no longer wakes wondering where he and Shadow will sleep that night. Emily's job offer became real within days. Cole began managing donated property, storage records, and recovered belongings for the veteran housing program. Work requiring patience, discipline, and the strange ability to understand that an ordinary object can mean everything to someone who has lost enough. Thomas Avery's documents were reviewed properly, the records restored, and the lakeside property returned to Emily according to the papers he had left behind. More important to her, the old ledgers finally showed where the charity money had gone. Families had been helped. Rent had been paid. Motel rooms had sheltered people between homes. Thomas had not left behind a perfect story. He had left behind an honest one. Emily eventually reopened the White Cabin, not as a private retreat, but as temporary housing for veterans moving toward permanent homes. She placed her father's challenge coin inside a simple frame near the entrance. Cole never asked what the inheritance was worth. Somehow, the number stopped matching. One Saturday afternoon, Emily arrived at his new house carrying the faded navy blue suitcase. She had cleaned the fabric, but left the scratches, broken zipper, and worn corners untouched. This belongs with you, she said. Cole tried to refuse. Emily shook her head. You returned what was inside. Keep what brought it home. Now the suitcase rests on a wooden shelf beside the living room window. Its hidden compartment is empty. Inside are Cole's old dog tags, the photograph of his father he once carried in the truck, and one newer picture taken outside this very house. Cole stands on the porch in jeans and a work jacket. Shadow sits beside him, ears high, amber eyes bright. Behind them is a front door with a brass number and a key that belongs to Cole. That evening, snow begins falling lightly over Norfolk. Cole sits on the porch steps while Shadow leans against his knee. Across the street, windows glow one by one as families settle in for the night. Cole reaches down and rests a hand between the shepherd's ears. Neither of them needs to move. Neither of them is waiting for morning to decide where they belong. Inside, the old suitcase holds no money, no secret documents, no forgotten fortune. Only the small pieces of a life being rebuilt. Cole looks at Shadow, and the dog looks back with the same steady certainty he carried through every night in the truck. Some lost things need to be returned. Some need to be remembered. And once in a while, something abandoned leads two wandering souls all the way home.